Hi, so today what we're going to do is cover how to bring in textures into Animate. There's two different ways to do it. The Bitmap fill, which is the first thing that I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to show you how to bring textures in that you can alter and change the size of. This might take two videos, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, so I have a texture that I've selected from textures.com. That is our texture source that we use a lot of times. I recommend for you to get your own username and password, but we do have one that you can use if you're a digital art and design student. We have a subscription. So when you're in here and you're thinking about how can I add textures to an image, but wanting it to be kind of subtle, I would recommend for you to go with something that's not incredibly obvious. So what I'm going to do is add some textures to my character stuff here. I've got speed with textures. That's going to be my test one. Let's see, I turned off probably turned on too many things, but we'll just go through and kind of get some stuff on and off. And speed, water mass, large speed. I think that's it. So essentially, I'm going to want to have some textures behind this character. I'm going to check and see which layers I need to have on and off. You can see that I'm working in layers. It's actually a helpful thing because then I can work with each one of these individually, and that's what I recommend for you to check to see if one of these things is the right area. I'm going to unlock all of this. This is the spades that I need. It's probably these masks that I've got. These old ones I don't want. Those masks are going to work nicely there. I just got to get rid of this last little spade. That's extra. There it is. It's the large spade. I don't want that one right now. Okay, so this is really, and then there's a bunch of sketch stuff that I know there's like snow stuff. I don't want that stuff. That's extra. Okay, so say I don't like this idea of the water that I've got inside of there, and I want to have just a different kind of texture, maybe a ripply water. What I did was we grabbed this, and I worked with a student for theirs, but I'm going to use this as an example here. So I suggest to go with something that's a little bit more combined. I guess combine's not the right word. Subtle, not exactly what you're going for. So I do like the marbles, the metals, paper, plastics, plaster. Those things work better than things that look exactly like something like the nature or the ornaments. So I'm going to go with a metal, and inside of here, the bare metal I find to be pretty helpful. Typically, you don't want to have something that has a lot of elements that might not scale properly or be able to get stretched, or have things like dots or geometry in it, because you can tend to see the edges of them. So anything like this or this works pretty well. This one, you can cut that other stuff out of it. But anything with lines and dots, bricks, that tends not to work quite so well. So this is the one that we used. We grabbed the small one because this is a very small file, so that texture file will be fine. And then you open that file up in Photoshop. The first thing to do is to go to it and then double click. That allows us to rename the file name, which I have here, and I'll just say OK. And then I'm going to Option, drag it, Alt on a PC, so that I have two different layers. This is the first one, and then this is the second one. In Photoshop, you have the opportunity to change the look of it. So I'm going to go up to Filter Gallery, and I like the cutout ones. You can play with the levels, which makes it more simple or more realistic as you play with these edge simplicity, making it more simple or more simple. This to the right goes more simple, and then this goes more realistic. I'm going to this time go with that look. Edge fidelity kind of just gives a little bit more edges. Sometimes it's hard to see. you got to watch that there's a blue line here that runs across. So I'm going to keep this one. That is a pretty cool texture. I'm also going to hit Command M, which is curves. Otherwise, you go to Image Adjustments and Curves. And I'm going to make this higher contrast by clicking up and then clicking down to get this to be higher contrast. You're going to have a lot more capabilities. Even though I don't want this to be this high contrast in the final piece, it will be helpful for us to have it be able to be high contrast because we can adjust the color. I can make it blue within it, so don't worry that this color is like too much of something. So at this point, Command Option Shift S is export save for web and devices. I've got 2 up, and this file size is fine. I'm just looking for a nice small file size. Make sure it's set to JPEG and 60. And I'm going to hit save. I'm going to call it altered. And I'm going to put it into DM2 online. That's fine. You guys should have a folder for your own stuff there. Okay, so now I'm going to open up Animate, and I'm going to go to the section where it would be good to bring in the texture. I'm going to zoom in on it. And where I want the texture to go is I'm going to actually go to this large spade. That's, let's see. Spade. I'm going to unlock all these, even though I might have a mask on it. But this spade right here, this is the shape of my spade, so I'm going to copy that. Command copy, or Command C is the copy for it. I'm going to go up above, make a new layer. Command Shift V will paste that new spade in place. So I'm going to call this one Spade Water Texture 2, because I already have maybe another one. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to, you can see that it's selected because it's kind of got those little dots on it, and I'm on this layer. When you go to color, you have the opportunity to, instead of saying solid color, we're going to go to the bitmap fill. So I'm going to go to bitmap fill, and I have a couple of other bitmaps that I've got in here, plaid, swirls, other things. But I haven't actually brought in this other new one, so I'm going to show you guys, like that one's water and actually is pretty, but it's actually very photographic. So just to show you that it's pretty photographic, I wouldn't want to actually have that be the look of what I'm going for. So what you can do to get that image in, you go File, Import to Library. We're going to import it to the library as opposed to the stage, because if we brought it into the stage, it would bring it directly in. So I'm looking for where I placed it, and here's the image. So now if I go to the library, it will be in here. So here's my new texture, and it's ready to go essentially. So now if I go to my spade with texture, if I select it and then go to the color and then go to bitmap fill, I can select that, and then that can be the look of it. You can see that that's like really crazy. It's taking away from the hierarchy of the image of my character and what's going on in the front of it. So I really want to push this back in space. In order to do that, what I'm going to do is click on it and go to Modify, Convert to Symbol. By making it a symbol, we're going to be able to alter the color or use some tints and some advanced methods. So I'm going to call this Spade with Water Texture. You can see that I don't use any spaces in my naming conventions, so that makes it easier to see, and I always use the capital letter before each word. I'm going to make this one into a movie clip so that we can really actually get some of the color adjustments. That's how we can get color adjustments. So it's all good there, and say OK. So that's now a symbol. When I click on it, it's going to act a little bit differently. There's going to be a box around it and an internal little dot. That's how I can tell it's a symbol. I've selected it. I've got this little box, so I know I have it. If I go to Properties and then go to Color Effect and go to Tint you can see that it is automatically tinting at what I had before, but I can go to this and find it to be a color that is within my color swatches, which we had already brought in. Or you can choose something else and play with it in that way. But I'm going to go with this one. And then I'm going to push it, I'm going to try to show you guys that if you take this tint all the way to 100%, it's going to be all the way the blue or whatever you choose. But this is a way to get it nice and subtle. You can see that it's just a little bit of texture. It's just adding a little bit of information. It's not distracting from the character. Well, the color itself is distracting. So it's a good start, but what I might do is then take this and run a property, an alpha on it. So within tint, I cannot do the alpha as well. So if I go to advanced, I can now run an alpha, which is picking up the purple from a previous layer, spade. So I'm going to go and turn off a bunch of other stuff down below. There we go. And a bunch of other stuff. Cool. So this is a little bit closer to where I'm trying to get it. I'm hitting Z for zoom and holding down Option. And now this is more like the potential of where my card wants to be. If I add a little bit of texture into one area, I would probably want to add some texture into some other areas so that it's not isolated. But this allows for the character to stand out. I might actually even want to make this even more subtle so that the character can stand out even more. So if I click on it, hitting V for the move tool, the dark move tool, and then go to color effect, and then go to alpha, making it even more subtle. It's really starting to stand out now. So that is how you can do bitmap fills, and adjusting them in Photoshop so that it doesn't, so that it starts to have some vector look to it, bringing it into Animate. So I hope you guys find ways that you can bring textures into your files. If you're working on the identity deck, the cards, your card does not need to have textures in it. That is an option for you. But there are ways that people have brought in really beautiful, subtle textures. For example, this card has some beautiful textures and decorative elements that was using texture fills, and my previous card had the texture fills, and this one as well. So there are ways that you can bring texture fills into your card art. It's not necessary, but it is an option. So texture fills in Animate. It's actually called bitmap fills when you get into it under the color swatches. All right, have a great time making your art look awesome, and we'll talk later. Bye.